Barbara Hepworth was one of the greatest sculptors of the 20th century. She was born in Yorkshire in 1903 and died in St Ives in Cornwall in 1975, where she'd spent the second half of her life. She had a really long career that spanned really significant world events like the Second World War, the advent of space travel, and her career kind of reflects that across the interests and the things she brought into her sculptural practice. The exhibition is called Art and Life because one of the things that I found really interesting about Hepworth was how she really integrated her interests into her artwork, from politics and society, music, theatre, dance, science and technology, but also events in her personal life. So, for example, having children, she talked about as having a significant impact on the way she made her work, but also the form of her sculpture. The exhibition at Towner includes some of the earliest works that Hepworth made, including drawings and paintings that she made when she was a teenager, and spans her whole career from the geometric abstract carvings in the 30s and 40s, strung works, also these beautiful bronze sculptures and casts you can see here, and then the later experimental work which uses all sorts of different materials from lead crystal to polished bronze, but also aluminium. So you really get a sense of the breadth of her practice from sculpture, which of course she's very well known for, through all of these different disciplines and how they're all connected as well. Hepworth first started talking about becoming more abstract in the very early 30s. She had become part of a group of avant-garde artists who were all kind of interested in these ideas, but for Hepworth it was partly thinking about a kind of formal move, but also thinking about a kind of spiritual element. So she was a proponent of Christian Science, which kind of placed an emphasis on the ephemeral world rather than the physical world, or the world of ideas, as she talked about it. So this might have been also an inspiration to move to these kind of geometric forms that had a universal nature to them rather than these figurative forms that were representing something in the real world. So Hepworth had been brought up in a musical family. Her mother was really interested in music and she learnt the piano at a young age. She often talked about the importance of music to her daily practice, how she used music to get her into a particular mood, to return her to carving. And then in 1950, she met a composer called Prieur Régnier, and she gave her a book, Stravinsky's Poetics of Form, which Hepworth found hugely inspirational, and wrote about how actually she saw that there's a great parallel between abstract sculpture and music and the forms that you find within both. So then she started making works that explicitly are titled after musical elements such as rhythmic form, which we have in the exhibition, and also after dances or types of 16th century court dance like galliard, for example. So one of the problems that she came up against being a female artist, she said, "I'm still plagued by this little woman attitude." And she said this in the 60s, when we think of it as a time of female emancipation, but she still had people saying to her, "Surely you couldn't have made this sculpture." So yes, this was something that she came up against, but was completely undeterred and left behind an ambitious body of work that shows the kind of scale that she wanted to achieve. I hope with this exhibition to show a more fully rounded picture of Barbara Hepworth, who she was as a person and as an artist, and how for her those things were so inextricably linked. Previous exhibitions perhaps have focused on her relationship to landscape or her kind of formal concerns or just her sculpture. And actually looking at these things is very important, but they only show one facet of someone who was incredibly complicated and engaged so passionately with the world around her in so many different ways. So I hope that by bringing together all this range of material from across her career, across different events in her life and in the world that inspired them, will give an insight into the person she was and the art she made.